Hello YouTube vintage stereo collectors and restorers. I came across something here you might find interesting if you're restoring one of these yourself. So you can't see the face of it. This is the Kenwood KA2002 that I started earlier in the week, and I've just been, when I've had some time working on it, I have the main filter cap done, I have the output caps done. I've just started on the board, and the nice thing about board, you can only see a fraction of it, but it's basically phono at one end and driver for the outputs at the other end. But I came across one of these odd anomalies, and I see this kind of thing come up on discussion boards. So on this side, I've taken a cluster of 3 capacitors out. I'm going to do the same on this side. I do one side, mirror it, then I do this center part. In position C26 on this side was an ELNA 25 volt 10 microfarad, and I would say this is original. The soldering looks like it's never been touched. On this side, in the mirror part of the circuit for the other channel, is a 25 volt 1 microfarad. Like there to there. And I've seen this before, and not just in Kenwoods. I've seen it in Sensuis, I've seen it in Yamahas. You have mismatching components, and all I can think of is this. These are being assembled largely by hand at that time. Parts bin empties. What do? You go up a size. Keep the assembly line going. And they were really into quality at that time, but they were also into producing product, and holdups weren't a great thing. They would analyze what happened, in the part shortage, just like the Japanese auto industry at the same time. Okay, but let's go back to this. This has worked. I couldn't tell the difference listening to it, that there was a 10 on one side, 1 on the other. So this cap basically takes the output from the phono preamp, and this is probably why I didn't hear it, and feeds it into the next stage, which is the tone control buffer. And I hadn't put a phono through this, but I have rebuilt the phono stage, the caps up here, the noisy C458 capacitors. But this one takes it from there into the next stage. That's where you probably would have heard it. Maybe it would have been the kind of thing that one channel was just a little different, a little bassier. That's what I would think. Okay, but the question is, looking at the schematic, I don't know if the camera will focus on this, but schematic says a 1 microfarad, 50 volt. Says the same for the other side, 1 microfarad, 50 volt. Here's the thing you're running into. This is actually a schematic of the board, so you can tell where the components are. You've got to look at just step back from the circuit for a minute and decide what it's doing. And I'm trying to find the actual schematic. Oh, there it is. Tell this has been on the bench for a while. No, this way. You can actually see better here. There's the output, a 10 microfarad coming off the collector, so it's a collector circuit, out leaving that section of the board, hooked into the 150 volt. And what have you basically got here? It's actually, in some ways, it's positive, negative, negative, positive. They're actually creating a bipolar or non-polarized capacitor, which kind of makes sense in that type of circuit. You don't want anything in a polarized capacitor. There is resistance to current a little bit more in one direction than the other when you're passing an AC signal, usually not enough to tell. But these were picky people. They had the Kenwood signature sound. Theoretically, based on what I was trained years ago in college, putting those two together like that, the 10 and the 1, you end up with something back to back as a bipolar capacitor that's an average of the two. So you're basically 10 plus 1 divided is about 5.5 microfarads is what you're ending up with. But you'd have uneven distribution. This really should be a 10 microfarad. And a circuit like that should be a 10 mirroring a 10. Then you actually end up with basically it's balanced. I don't know if I'm saying enough there, but that's the way I was taught how to create that's basically what a non-polarized or bipolar cap is inside an electrolytic. It's basically two caps, positive to positive or minus to minus. That's how they create if you take it apart. So on the one side, for whatever reason, they substituted, and maybe nobody ever even heard a difference. But I'm going to put a 10 in there, and this I've actually noticed. If you look at this circuit and compare it with an earlier model, the KA2500 TK250, it actually has a 10 there. It has a 2-transistor phone preamp, almost identical circuit arrangement, but on a different board. It's a 10 and a 10. It is go with the next biggest size. If there's two that don't, makes it one's a 1 and one's a 10, one's a 4.7, one's a 10, go with the 10 for both sides and move on to the next one. Thanks for watching and listening.